The first time she heard her mother practice it, Maya was 26 and had been cleaning surgical suites for 4 years. She stood in the doorway of her mother's kitchen, watching the woman hold a wine glass filled with ginger ale, raising it toward an invisible crowd. "One daughter is a doctor," her mother said, then paused, finding the beat. "The other is a maid." She tried it again, adjusting the timing. "One daughter is a doctor. The other is a maid." She smiled at herself in the window's reflection. The pause is everything. You have to let them sit with it. Maya did not move. She understood that she was not the audience for this rehearsal. She was the material. She had not planned to arrive early. Her bus from the city had been faster than the schedule predicted, and she had wanted to use the bathroom before the guests arrived, to change out of her travel clothes and into the dress her mother had approved by text message 3 days prior. "Navy is dignified," her mother had written. "Not black. Black looks like you're trying to make a point." Maya watched her mother drink the ginger ale, set down the glass, and try the line once more with a laugh attached. The laugh was new. It suggested the toast was spontaneous, a mother's charming indiscretion, something she would pretend to regret even as she repeated it. She backed out of the doorway silently. She had learned this technique young, how to remove herself from spaces without creating disturbance. In her work, she moved through operating rooms that had to remain sterile, her presence necessary but unmarked. She had never told her family what she did. When her mother asked about her employment, she said, "Hospitality." When pressed, she said, "Housekeeping management." Both were true. Neither were complete. She walked to the gas station 3 blocks away and bought a coffee she did not want. She sat in the parking lot until her phone showed 4:15, the time she had originally planned to arrive. Then she walked back and rang the doorbell, though she had a key. The toast happened at 6:47. Maya knew the time, because she had developed a habit of noting precise moments, a way of grounding herself when her mother's voice grew performative. The turkey had been carved. Her sister Alina had been seated to their mother's right, the position of honor. Though Alina had arrived late and had not helped with anything, Alina was finishing her residency in orthopedic surgery. She had published 2 papers. She was, by every measure their family used, the success. Maya sat 7th from her mother's left, between a cousin she did not recognize and Alina's fiancé, a man who had asked her 3 questions about her hotel business. Before losing interest, she had answered him with the same precision she used when documenting sterilization cycles: accurate, sufficient, offering no invitation for follow-up. Her mother stood. The wine glass was real now, filled with Chardonnay. 14 people watched her raise it. "Before we eat," her mother said, "I want to say how grateful I am. For this family. For health." She looked at Alina. "For achievement." She looked at Maya, or in her direction, for perspective. The pause came. Maya had heard it rehearsed, but experiencing it was different. In the kitchen it had been theoretical. Here, she felt 14 faces turned toward her, waiting for her to provide the contrast that would make the toast work. She was the negative space in her mother's art. "One daughter is a doctor," her mother said. "The other is a maid." The laugh followed, exactly as practiced. It suggested the words had escaped a mother's love too honest for filter. Several guests laughed with her, relieved to be included in the joke. Alina looked down at her plate, not quite smiling, not quite not. Maya felt the familiar sensation, the desire to leave so strong it felt like physical pressure behind her sternum. She had developed a taxonomy of exits. The early morning departure, claiming work. The sudden illness, believable because she was pale by nature. The walk to the bathroom that became a walk to the car, keys already in hand. She had never once confronted her mother. She had told herself this was strategy, that she was preserving something, though she could not name what. She reached for her water glass. Her hand was steady. She had learned this in her work, How to maintain composure while handling instruments that would be used to open human bodies. Fear was acceptable. Visible fear was not. Her mother was still standing, still holding the wine glass, waiting for the laughter to subside so she could continue. She had more to say. Maya recognized the posture, the slight lean forward, the gathering of breath. Her mother was preparing to toast Alina again, to build on the foundation she had laid. Maya set down her water glass. The sound was small but distinct, a period where her mother had expected a comma. She did not look at her mother. She looked at the man to her mother's left, the retired judge her mother had married 18 months prior, after Maya's father died. Judge William Harlan. He had spent 32 years on the bench. He had presided over medical malpractice cases. He had, Maya knew from her mother's emails, recently had a hip replacement. Judge Harlan, she said. Her mother's mouth opened, then closed. She had not reached her second toast yet. Interruption was not in the script.
Yes,
the judge said. He was 71, with the careful posture of a man still recovering from surgery. Your hip replacement, Maya said. In August, at Columbia Presbyterian. He looked surprised, then pleased. Yes, how did you? I prepared your operating room, Maya said. I was on the sterilization team. August 14th. Reeves, posterior approach. The table had gone silent. Her mother's wine glass was still raised, but her arm had locked. She did not understand what was happening. I don't, the judge began. I cleaned the surgical suit, Maya said. I tested the autoclave. I verified the instrument trays. I was there when they brought you in. She spoke with the same voice she used for documentation, factual, uninflected, complete. I didn't mention it because I was raised to believe certain work shouldn't be discussed at dinner. She did not look at her mother. She did not look at Elena. She kept her eyes on the judge, who was watching her with the focused attention she had seen him give to witnesses in the newspaper photographs her mother sent. You're in hospital housekeeping, he asked. Central sterile processing, Maya said. I manage sterilization for surgical suites. I've worked at Columbia for 6 years. 6 years, he repeated. Yes, her mother lowered her wine glass. The gesture was small, but Maya saw it. The toast was over. The performance had been interrupted by fact. The judge turned to her mother. You didn't tell me Maya worked at Columbia. Her mother began. She's worked there 6 years, the judge said. Not accusing. Simply establishing record. She prepared my operating room. Elena was still looking at her plate. Maya understood then, with a clarity that felt like cold water. Elena had known. They had passed in corridors. Elena had seen her in scrubs, carrying instrument trays, and had not acknowledged her. The silence at the table was not just surprise. It was the silence of people, recognizing they had been complicit in something they had not bothered to examine. Sterilization is critical work, the judge said, turning back to Maya. I read about the protocols after my surgery. The complexity. Yes, Maya said. What does your department handle? Surgical suites. Orthopedics, cardiac, neurosurgery. She named them without pride or apology. We process approximately 400 cases per week. 400, he said. And you've been there 6 years. Yes, he nodded slowly. Maya recognized the gesture, a judge receiving testimony, filing it for later consideration. I would have liked to know, he said. Before the surgery. That someone from my family was involved in my care. I wasn't involved in your care, Maya said. I prepared the environment for your care. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a doctor. I don't interact with patients. She paused. I'm not mentioned in toasts. Her mother made a sound, a small intake of breath that might have become words. Maya did not turn to hear them. She had said what she needed to say. The rest was consequence, not performance. The judge was quiet for a moment. Then he asked about sterilization protocols, genuinely interested, and Maya answered him with the same precision she used in her work. She explained the 3-zone concept: clean, sterile, and storage. She described the biological indicators, the chemical integrators, the documentation required for each load. She spoke for perhaps 4 minutes. Around them, the table listened, uncertain of their role in this conversation. When she finished, the judge nodded again. "Thank you," he said, "for the explanation. And for your work." "You're welcome," Maya said. Her mother tried to restart the toast. She raised her glass again, but the rhythm was broken. She said something about gratitude, about family, but the words were generic, unrehearsed. She sat down without toasting Elena a second time. Dinner continued. No one apologized to Maya. She had not expected them to. Apology would have required acknowledging that something wrong had occurred, and the table was not prepared for that acknowledgement. Instead, they adjusted. The cousin beside her asked about sterilization temperatures. Elena's fiancé mentioned a hospital stay from his childhood, trying to find connection. Elena herself said nothing. Maya ate what was on her plate. She had learned to eat under stress, to maintain blood sugar, to keep her hands steady. This was part of her professional training. The body must function regardless of emotional condition. When dessert was served, her mother did not make a speech. She cut the pie silently and passed plates. Maya watched her hands shake slightly, the only visible sign of disturbance. She felt no satisfaction in this. She had not wanted to wound her mother. She had wanted to stop being invisible. At 90:15, she prepared to leave. She had not invented an excuse. She simply said she had to work in the morning, which was true. The judge stood when she stood, an old habit of courtesy, and walked her to the door. In the foyer, he paused. "I didn't know," he said, "about your work. Or your mother's presentation of it." "I know," Maya said. "Will you tell me, in the future? If you're involved in my care." "If I'm involved in your environment," she said. "Yes, I'll tell you." He nodded. He did not offer to speak to her mother. He did not promise change. He simply opened the door and said, "Drive safely. The roads are wet." She walked to her car. The night was cold, the sky clear. She sat in the driver's seat for a moment before starting the engine. She felt the absence of something she had carried in, the weight of prepared silence, the practiced invisibility. It was not replaced by triumph. It was simply gone. She drove past Columbia Presbyterian on her way to the highway. The building was lit, as it always was, the surgical suites on the 4th floor preparing for tomorrow's cases. She would be there at 5:30 a.m., as she always was. She would check the autoclaves, review the schedule, prepare the environments where other people's lives would be saved or altered. She had never been ashamed of this work. She had only been silent about it, and the silence had become a habit so deep she had mistaken it for dignity. She merged onto the highway. The road was wet, as the judge had said. She drove carefully at the speed limit, maintaining the lane. She did not cry. She did not laugh. She simply drove toward her apartment, where she would sleep for 5 hours, and then return to the work she had named aloud, finally, in her mother's dining room. The victory was this: she had spoken, and the world had not ended. She had been seen, and she had remained standing. Tomorrow she would clean surgical suites, and she would do it without the additional labor of hiding. This was enough. This was everything.